In this video, we're going to take a look at a red ink by Platinum called Red. Now, as always, there's timestamps down below so you can skip around, but if you've got the time, I'd appreciate you checking out the entire video. Also, down in the description is a link to the red ink playlist, so if you wanted to find more reds, which you probably will, you'll be able to find that there. I'm an ink guy, and let's get into the first writing sample done on 90 GSM Clairfontaine. No bleeding, no ghosting. Whew. No feather, spread, halo sheen. It shades in the stub, it shades in the extra fine, it shades in the medium. It does that very well in all three. The stub is much darker than everything on the page. Extra fine and medium are the same tone. Extra fine took 12 seconds to dry, while the medium took 17. Scrubby for both do show a little bit of color variation, much better in the writing. And the smear test, I do not think you could recover if you smeared while you were writing. To have a range of experience with this ink, all of the writing samples are done with a Jinhao 159 with a 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X450 with a medium, and a Jinhao X750 with an extra fine. Then a Hero 7035 with a fine nib was inked up, used for a day, and used to take the notes for this video. The next writing sample is done on 52 GSM Tomoe River. No bleeding, no real ghosting. It is a very thin paper. It has no feather, spread, halo sheen, no shade, though the extra fine is much lighter than the stub. The medium's darker than the extra fine and nowhere near as dark as the stub. Extra fine took 15 seconds to dry, while medium took 23. Scrubby for both said no color variation, and the writing agreed. Smear test, you can't recover it if you smear while you're writing. More problem for the paper than it generally is for the ink. I agree with Vita. I've learned a lot by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. A line of ink is put down, and then it's put into water for 10 to 15 seconds. And this is like precursor of where some of the problems are. At the bottom, you see it is very pink and solid, moving its way up, and becomes more red-ish towards the top. That's how I'll say it. The one on the right is let dry for 10 minutes before it's put into water. Now, the pinkish at the bottom is darker and, more staying there. The red is still moving up, and it actually looks a little bit darker at this point. There may be a little bit of resistance, but I don't expect it to be a big deal. The next writing sample is done on 80 GSM Rhodia dot pad. No bleeding, no ghosting. We have no feather, spread, halo sheen. We do get some shading in the stub. We get shading in the extra fine and in the medium. Shading's not a problem here. The extra fine's a lot lighter than the stub, while the medium's the same tone as the stub. Extra fine took 12 seconds to dry, and medium took 18. Scrubby for both gave no color variation, although it's definitely there in the writing. And the smear test, I don't think you could recover if you smeared while you were writing. Resistance tests are done to see how this ink can be expected to perform on the page, and more importantly, how hard the ink may be to clean from your pen. The smear is allowed to dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, I would not use this in a note-taking situation if I needed to go back and highlight because of what happens to that capital H. Now, looking at the water, you do see that it's starting to break it down quite a bit, and you see a little bit of the white of the paper coming through. Pen Flush does everything that water did and nothing more, and the 1/3 bleach solution, as is normal, obliterated it. However, it only took water to get it out of my pen, as is normal. The next writing sample is done on White Lines paper. Not a paper known to be especially fountain pen friendly, and with a minor bit of ghosting in the medium, otherwise it did incredibly well. We have no feather, spread, halo sheen. It is showing the shading in the extra fine and in the medium, just not the stub. The extra fine's way lighter than the medium. Way lighter than a medium and especially the stub, but the medium's darker than the extra fine and lighter than the stub. Extra fine took 4 seconds to dry and the medium took 6. Scrubby for both do show a tiny bit of color variation. It's definitely there in the writing. And the smear test you could not recover if you smeared while you were writing. For the inks tested, the average viscosity was 2.5 and the realm of normal was 2.1 to 2.9. Platinum Red has a viscosity of 1.46, so it's wet. If you're interested in how the viscosity is tested and all of that nonsense, then down in the description is a link to that video. Now let's take a look at Strathmore writing paper. No bleeding, no ghosting. No feather, spread, halo sheen, minor shading in the extra fine. It does have a little bit of shading as well in the stub. It even has shading come through in the medium. Now the extra fine's a lot lighter than the stub, and the medium's a little bit darker than the extra fine, nowhere near as dark as the stub. Extra fine took 6 seconds to dry, while the medium took 9. The scrubby for both said there is color variation, and the writing agreed. Smear test you could not recover if you smeared while you were writing. For the inks tested, the average dry time was 17 seconds. In the realm of normal was 13 to 21 seconds. Platinum Red has an average dry time of 16 seconds, so it's normal. The last writing sample is done on P. Berger paper. This is a student grade paper, not meant to be able to use the back, so the fact that we get some little spotting is not the end of the world. Now, other than the stub at the top, I do think you could use the back of the page, and none of it corrupted the page underneath. As we look at this, we have no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen. It offers tiny bits of shading in the extra fine, just tiny bits, not very much at all, and only tiny bits of lighter areas in the medium, but I barely call what's occurring as shading. The extra fine's a lot lighter than the stub, while the medium's only a little lighter than the stub. Extra fine took 2 seconds to dry and the medium took 4. Scrubby for both show a tiny bit of color variation. It shows better here than it does in the writing, and the smear test I do not think you could recover if you smeared while you were writing. Instead of finding inks that look like Platinum Red, I'd prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. I decided to go with a green ink by Levenger, Always Greener. Now, if you'd prefer a different complement color, then down in the description are links to those playlists. So what do I think of Platinum Red? If this was the first fountain pen ink red I ever... Good Lord, start over again. If this was the first fountain pen ink red I ever tried, I would have never tried another one. This is very pink red, and I hate everything about it. I'm sorry for that negativity on it, but this is far from red. So what nib and pen will give the best writing experience with this ink? Well, if you like the pink, go with whatever you feel like, as long as it's not super wet. But if you want it to be red, I would suggest going with a real gusher of a pen in a fine or an extra fine pen, because that's where you actually do get red from this. I hope you got something out of this video, and in the next video, we're going to take a look at Ackerman's number 8.